Han Li breaks through the vowel, and Nangong Wan confess to each other and get together. Mei Cheng sounds Nangong Wan. Piu Zhang is secretly plotted against by Elder Yin Luo. The Wine Soul curse has turned into a little girl. Life is in imminent danger. Helplessly sealing himself to delay the Wine Soul curse from breaking out, Han Li seeks to obtain the inner core of the matchstick beast. Two clear part of this curse's examples, and to Yuan Ying are modified. Entering the first forbiddance area of Tianan, the Demonfall Valley, Han Li stares intently at the matchstick beast that remains motionless, lips tightly closed. According to the information he gathered before coming to the Demonfall Valley, the matchstick beast can not only use the power of lava to restore its vitality, but is also proficient in the art of fire escape. It can use the power of flames to move thousands of feet in an instant. And here, the mountains are covered in a sea of lava. If this beast were to burrow underground, it could easily escape. Perhaps Nan Nong and Ho are completely unconcerned about this. After all, they came for the treasures of the sea. They just can't kill this beast. As long as they can drive it away, it doesn't matter. But he is different. He is determined to obtain this beast's demon core. Therefore, he must lure this beast into the formation, to force it into the bet. Only then will he feel at ease to deal with this beast. Therefore, whether the matchstick beast will chase after this at this moment has naturally become a key issue. The matchstick beast, using Han Li, only fought for a moment before retreating immediately. It couldn't help but feel a bit reckless. But this beast seems to have no lofty ambitions, unexpectedly moving without a second thought, transforming into a ball of red light and rushing over. Han Li was overjoyed at this sight. It only chased out a short distance. Suddenly, blue and white light appeared around the flying matchstick. A layer of light blue water curtain emerged around it. Then a flash of white light appeared on the water curtain. Several white water dragons flickered in and out of visibility, eager to leap out. The entire mist of light became damp and chilly. The matchstick beast was startled and stopped abruptly. Its eyes spun wildly. It began to growl threateningly. At the same time, lights flickered on both sides of the mist. Nan Nu On Ho and the old man with the surname Lu simultaneously appeared. When these two saw the matchstick beast trapped by the law, they rushed forward without hesitation. They sent out their respective treasures. Nan Nu On Ho threw out the jade ring he held in his hand. Meanwhile, the old man did not use his original magical treasure. Instead, he threw up both his hands, and intertwining blue flying blades shot out. The formation's light screen naturally wouldn't have any effect on the treasures of the two of them. They instantly flashed through the water screen, attacking the wokai within, and those few white water dragons on the light screen also flew out from the water screen at the perfect moment, baring their fangs and claws as they attacked. This was precisely because, from a distance, Han Li had waved a formation flag in her hand, activating the restrictions within the formation to coordinate with the duo's attack. When wokai saw this, although its intelligence wasn't high, it still had a bad feeling. It immediately let out an earth-shattering roar. Then, its body shrank, before suddenly expanding again, unleashing its life-saving ability. After this beast roared loudly, one after another, there appeared on its body, identically sized, crimson light shields. These small shields were densely packed, swarming out from Huokai's body batch after batch. Then they merged into one. In the blink of an eye, they formed 3 impenetrable layers of a fiery red light barrier. Just at this moment, Jade Ring, Water Dragon and two Blue Songs almost simultaneously triggered these lights. Suddenly, the sound of roaring echoed in the water curtain. Red flames and water vapor intertwined with various colors of light. For a moment, it was dazzling and blinding, making it impossible to focus on anything. But after another roar from the matchstick beast, a weak water tank's light beam shot out from the glow, striking one side of the water wood. As a result, the water wood was struck. It only resisted for a moment before being easily frozen through, creating a large hole. The red light suddenly shone brightly at the center of the water wood. Then a giant pillar of flame rose around the matchstick beast. Out of nowhere, in an instant, both the water dragon ring and the 2 blue songs were forcibly pushed out of the flame pillar, and at the center of the flame pillar, faintly powerful, was the blurry figure of the matchstick bone beast. Just as all attacks were repelled by the flame pillar, the matchstick beast, realizing it was trapped, seized the opportunity, pushed off with its hind legs, transforming into a ball of blazing flames and darting out. Its target was the hole that was gradually becoming obscured. The southern Long Marquis and the elderly man with the loose surname were startled. They hurriedly commanded their treasures, trying to catch up and stop this beast from escaping the confinement. But it seems a bit too late. The fiery mass was approaching the water curtain. In the blink of an eye, it was about to flash out. At that moment, a sharp whistle suddenly sounded from afar. The matchstick beast extended one of its forelimbs out of the hole. Suddenly, a black flash appeared before its eyes. Something brushed past. At the same time, that forelimb had already lost a large chunk of the matchstick. Its body twitched violently. An unbearable sharp pain surged from the severed limb. Although this beast had considerable powers, it couldn't help but let out a scream before falling from the sky. The two outside, the southern Donghua, were overjoyed at this sight. They immediately commanded their treasures to surround the matchstick beast that couldn't fight back. A flurry of attacks rained down on it. Among them, the green ring flickered and transformed into hundreds of illusions. They rolled around the matchstick, trying to bind it completely. Meanwhile, the blue long songs also transformed, becoming blue soldiers several dozen feet long. They flew directly at it. But this beast was indeed a formidable being from the past. Even with a severed limb, it did not affect its cultivation in the slightest. Its powers were almost instantaneous. But it does not affect its cultivation at all. The divine ability is almost instantaneous, dense and intricate. The light shield reappears. The depth of these formulas has been fully absorbed. Those emerald green rings cannot fully express their depth. Naturally, there's no talk of any offense, only relying on ordinary micro-energy to continuously collide with those light shields. The effect is minimal, and the two icy beasts are exactly countering these light shields. Each time they pounce, they must shatter a small shield. However, these shields are nearly endless. The effect is still not significant, but moments later, 6 blue princesses descend from the sky, joining the fray. Without dodging, they must break a light shield. The rumbling sound suddenly rises. The fire god beast, just trying to stand up, is once again pressed to the ground. The male lord slightly tilted his head and saw Han Li had unknowingly flown to a nearby spot. At that moment, she waved her hand to disperse the black pieces on one arm, and behind her, 6 blue puppets opened their mouths to spray out thick beams of light, attacking the matchstick bone beast in the ink wash. Han Ling's gaze shifted, a glance at the matchstick beast that fell out of the ink wash. Duenzi. Although this thing has left its original owner's body, it still emits a faint red glow, floating near the solid wood, as if it still possesses some spirit. Han Li woke up upon seeing this. A flash of Arthur passed through the mist. He had just seen from a distance that the situation was critical. The matchstick was about to escape the ban. In a moment of urgency, a shadow demon slash was unleashed. This was what severed the beast's forelimb. But unexpectedly, the matchstick beast was still so fierce after losing its limb. Even though it was attacked by Tu Anying cultivators, along with 6 giant turtle puppets, it still managed to hold its ground. No wonder the elder Kinkan back then, knowing he was severely injured, voluntarily retreated, realizing he could not defeat it. Han Dao has this matchstick. Its living attribute spirit shield is unending, continuously replenishing. I'm afraid it still needs your kind of cold, attribute divine power to restrain it. Otherwise, this battle could drag on indefinitely. The elder Lu Zun saw that the matchstick, the small shield on its body, had been shattered, immediately transformed into a faint source of fire, being absorbed into the matchstick beast's body. Then another batch of light shields surged out. Suddenly, someone anxiously shouted. Without the old man saying this, Han Li also noticed this situation. He didn't say anything. With a grand flourish, it began with his mouth. Golden light splashed out from his sleeves. After a swirl, under Han Li's urging, it condensed into a long, giant sword. This sword was shining with golden light. It emanated a chilling aura. This action caught Lu Wang and Nangong off guard. They wanted Han Li to unleash that terrifying blue cold goose to deal with the matchstick. But Han Li calmly released the heavy stone sword. Naturally, they didn't notice it. As they saw it gradually taking shape, Han Li expressionlessly extended his hand to perform a move. The golden light flickered slightly. The giant sword fell down. It stopped in front of Han Li. Han Li opened his mouth, and a slender blue ray shot out. It just happened to accumulate on top of the giant sword. The golden sword trembled slightly. Then a layer of blue light wrapped around the sword. It ignited fiercely. Han Li hesitated for a moment, rubbing both hands together. Another spell was cast, awakening the evil repelling divine thunder in the sword. Suddenly, a deep thunderous sound erupted. Within the blue flames of the giant sword, countless slender golden arcs of electricity appeared, flickering incessantly. Not yet dead. A flash of light appeared in his eyes. With one hand, he charged forward. The matchstick beast pointed with a finger, spitting out a word. In the depths of Wang Ming, the giant sword transformed into a stunning arrow and shot out, only aimed at that matchstick beast. At this moment, the Marquis of Nanlong and Lu Wang, after their frantic attacks proved ineffective, their offensive momentum slowed down. The matchstick took this opportunity to finally catch its breath. The fiery red spiritual light on him pressed down. In an instant, his abdomen suddenly swelled sharply. It seemed he was planning to unleash some divine ability in retaliation. Just then, the golden giant ship flew instantly above the matchstick beast's head, accompanied by a thunderous roar. It came crashing down fiercely. The matchstick beast stared at the golden arrow in the sky. Its emerald green eyes widened slightly. It seemed to sense the immense threat. It only caused its belly to swell. It couldn't continue any further. The monster let out a cry and spat out a crimson, crystalline fire bead. It shot straight toward the golden arrow falling from above. This fire pellet was only the size of a fist, but its surface was smooth. A red light flickered within it, making it look like a giant fire pearl. The moment it left its mouth, the air within the entire water curtain instantly became scorching hot. Wait, that's not a demon core. It's not a physical object. When Hanli saw this fire pellet being spat out, he was greatly startled at first, but he immediately discovered it wasn't a physical object. Only then did he feel relieved. After all, if it were truly a fire-type demon core, he would have had to be more cautious. Hanli urged on his technique with a hand seal. The golden sword struck down upon the fire pellet without hesitation. With the sharpness of the Qingju Fangyan sword and the condensed power of 10 flying swords, although this fire pellet was a bit strange, he imagined that it should naturally be destroyed in a single strike. But then, a scene that greatly astonished him appeared. After a loud bang, the fire pellet erupted in a brilliant light. The red light and the golden radiance intertwined. It had only cut halfway through when the giant sword was forcefully stopped by the fireball. At that very moment, in the matchstick beast's eyes, a human-like sneer flashed. Then, it opened its mouth and let out a sharp screech. The fireball, which had been split in half, instantly burst apart. A great torrent of crimson light poured out, but in the next instant, it condensed into a 20-foot-long red serpent of light. In a single flash, this light serpent fiercely coiled itself around the giant sword, wrapping it tightly within. The giant sword came to a halt. It looked as if it had been completely immobilized. Hanli was startled at first, but then the corner of his mouth curled up into a cold smirk. He formed a hand seal with both hands and gently pointed at the giant sword. Golden light immediately flared wildly from the sword. Then a fine web of lightning appeared on the giant sword's surface. Countless electric arcs leapt and crackled. The serpent of light that had been tightly binding the giant sword was violently thrown off the blade. Seizing the opportunity, the giant sword trembled slightly and abruptly vanished from its spot. The next moment, it appeared on top of the many light shields of the matchstick beast. It blinked down in response. The blue flames on the sword suddenly surged. A continuous crackling sound echoed. All the light shields were struck by the giant ship and were immediately frozen into ice by the blue Hanyan, transforming into shimmering ice shields. But then, the main body of the giant ship instantly shattered them, breaking through the small shield of the stonefish in one breath. The giant ship appeared above the matchstick beast's body, aimed directly at its massive head and struck down hard. The matchstick beast never expected such a sudden turn of events. It had just expelled fireballs formed from its internal true fire. Without even a moment to catch its breath, the giant sword broke through the protective shield above its head. At this point, even if it had low aspirations, it was filled with despair. In desperation, the matchstick beast could only open its mouth. With a swoosh, a long, dark tongue suddenly shot out from its mouth, wrapping around the descending giant sword. At the same time, it pushed off with its hind legs, preparing to leap up to evade the strike. If it were an ordinary flying knife, this action wouldn't have been wrong for the beast. After all, the toughness of this wrapped tongue was by no means inferior to an ordinary magical treasure. After all, the toughness of this tongue-tied object is no less than that of an ordinary magic weapon. If it were an ordinary treasure, it could naturally block it for a moment. But this one, which had been mixed with, and further refined, the azure cloud-clearing sword, its suction power was not something an ordinary flying sword could compare to. The moment it made contact, the azure light flashed faintly, and the sword easily sliced the long tongue in two. Then, without pausing, it continued to slash down. With a poochie sound, the fire-toad beast had just leapt up, when its huge head tumbled down from its body. The other light shields around it immediately turned to ash and smoke, and were annihilated. Upon seeing this, the old man surnamed Lu shouted with great joy. Old Marquis Nan also let out a long sigh of relief. A smile appeared on his face. At the same time, he formed a hand seal, and was about to disperse the water barrier to go take a look. "Hold on," Hanli said coldly, stopping old Marquis Nan Long from removing the water barrier. "What is it, Brother Han? What is the meaning of this?" The Marquis was taken aback, a look of shocked suspicion on his face, but he unconsciously placed a hand on the storage pouch at his waist. Lu Wang glanced at Hanli, his body turning slightly to the side, also looking slightly wary. It's nothing. It's just that this wokai beast hasn't been truly finished off yet. Marquis Nanlong was being a bit too anxious. Han Li paid no attention to this. He just said calmly, "What? This wokai beast is still alive." Hearing this, both Marquis Nanlong and the old man were startled. They hurriedly looked towards the water screen. Only then did they notice the wokai beast in the water screen. Its corpse indeed looked rather strange. The body and head, which had been split in two, unexpectedly still had their spiritual light intact. They were floating in midair, showing no sign of falling. But that was not all. Just as Marquis Nanlong and the old man were looking closely, the decapitated body of the wokai beast actually began to emit crimson wisps of light from its neck stump, and the wokai beast's head, floating to one side, also had a glowing radiance flashing from its wound. The two patches of radiance continuously extended and intertwined, gradually drawing closer to each other. An indestructible body. This wokai beast actually possesses such an innate divine ability. Seeing this scene, Marquis Nanlong cried out in alarm. The old man with the surname Lu exclaimed in shock, also revealing an astonished expression. Indestructible? How can there be anything truly indestructible in this world? It's just that its life force is just a bit stronger than an ordinary demon beast. Han Li, who had read numerous ancient texts, naturally knew what the so-called immortal body referred to, and when he had cut off the Huochi beast's limb, after seeing the strangeness of the severed limb, he had already grown faintly suspicious. That was why he had spoken up and stopped Marquis Nanlong from rashly opening the restriction. Otherwise, if the Huochi beast had taken the chance to revive and escape, all his previous efforts would have been for nothing. But now, Han Li let out a cold laugh. He pointed a finger at the giant sword that had severed the Huochi beast's head. The giant sword spun nimbly in the air. It suddenly split apart into two, transforming into two streaks of golden light. They simultaneously shot towards the expanse of blue light below. Two crisp pang-pang sounds were heard. The Huochi beast's head and body were first instantly frozen into ice sculptures by the ice flame from the sword, sealing the crimson glow within them. Then, they were shattered by the flying sword strike, turning into spakes of fluorescent light that danced in the air. Where the body had shattered, a thumb-sized, crimson orb was left behind. It was the Huochi beast's demon core. Once the demon core appeared, Marquis Nanlong and the old man surnamed Lu exchanged a glance, both seeing a hint of temptation in the other's eyes. After all, it was the demon core of a beast with an immortal body. It might even have some special miraculous effects. When the two of them thought of the divine abilities Han Li had previously displayed, and his recent, resounding reputation, this slight wavering in their hearts was extinguished in an instant. After all, the two of them were also very clear. Han Li's divine abilities were definitely superior to theirs. Even if the two of them joined forces, they could probably only put up a fight against Han Li. Moreover, the odds of winning were only about 50-50. To turn hostile over an unknown beast core, the two of them felt it wasn't worth it. After all, there were still many more opportunities in this fallen demon valley. Although Han Li didn't have any mind-reading techniques, he could guess what Nanlong Ho and the other were thinking, with about 70 to 80% accuracy. Just now, in the fight to slay the fire beast, these two, as Nascent Soul cultivators, clearly didn't use their full strength. He had relied almost entirely on his own divine abilities to kill the female beast. Therefore, after beheading the fire beast, Han Li appeared normal on the surface, but in reality, he had already raised his guard against these two several-fold. This was to prevent the two from being blinded by greed and doing something foolish. Now, upon seeing the strange look on their faces for a moment, which then instantly returned to normal, Han Li also breathed an inward sigh of relief. Although he wasn't afraid of fighting the two of them, but it's better not to get involved. It's naturally better not to take risks. Han Li immediately reached out into the water curtain. That fiery red waste pill shot out with a whoosh. It flew into the palm of his hand. The two flying swords then cleared up for a moment. They disassembled on their own, transforming into small swords shaped like stonefish. They also flew back swiftly. They disappeared into the show without a trace. Han Li looked down at the fiery red waste pill in his hand. He let out a sigh of relief. The goal of this trip into the depths of the bones has finally achieved one of its objectives. At this moment, the male noble suddenly spoke with a smile. This time, we could eliminate this fire match. Thanks to you, Han Taoist. However, let us go check out this beast's lair now. I believe it must be quite interested in the treasures of the sea. Naturally, Han Li put away the waste pill. He nodded subtly, without showing any emotion. The old man with the surname Lu, upon hearing their words, naturally looked very pleased. Then the three of them collected the nearby formation and headed straight for the cave beneath the giant peak. Speaking of which, Han Li actually had the idea of quietly releasing the music to explore the cave for treasures first. But these two were also wily old foxes. They were constantly on guard against Han Li. Furthermore, their cultivation levels and magical power were a notch higher than Han Li's. If he were to release the music without any cover, it would, 9 times out of 10, not escape their divine senses. Moreover, the remains of that ancient cultivator seemed a bit strange. Han Li also had other concerns. Thus, after a moment's thought, he dismissed the idea. The 3 streaks of light that the trio had become reached the cave entrance in an instant, and flew straight inside without the slightest pause. Upon seeing the lake of lava, Nangong Wan and the other man were taken aback, but they immediately feigned calmness and scanned their surroundings. When the two of them were just briefly looking around the lake shore, sweeping their eyes over the area, their gazes fell upon the body on the stone platform, an ancient cultivator wrapped in a light robe. The expressions of the 2 men immediately lit up with joyous surprise. It seems this is the remains Reverend Kinkan spoke of. Fellow Taoists, let's go over together. Marquis Nangong wiped the smile from his face and said, maintaining his composure. Han Li and the old man naturally did not refuse. The 3 immediately skimmed across the lava lake, flying directly to the front of the stone platform on the opposite side. They stopped, standing 30 to 40 feet from the platform. Han Li looked again at the fruit remains on the stone platform. A hint of impatience appeared on her face. The Marquis of Nangong and the old man with the Lu surname did not hold back. They immediately took their positions. Then they quickly sprinkled the divine stone to probe. They wanted to locate the exact position of the treasure first. Seeing this, Han Li slightly curled the corner of her mouth. She revealed a smile that was not quite a smile. But she did not say anything. She already knew that the ancient robe was strange. She wouldn't mind letting these two experience it personally. Sure enough, these two were taken aback by the divine light. That ancient child's reflection went to the 9 relatives. A hazy brilliance burst forth from the robe, rebouncing the divine stones of the 2. The male naked monkey and the old man, who had never encountered such a thing, could not help but exclaim in surprise. This robe is a bit strange, Lu Wang said with unexpected difficulty. It's nothing, just a light silk robe. It is made from the silk of ancient spiritual silkworms. It can resist the probing of divine stones. Although it is a rare item in today's cultivation world, it was said to be quite common in ancient times. The Marquis of Nangong regained his composure and said calmly. He then gathered air in front of him with one hand. With a slight shake of his robe, it instantly transformed into a beam of clear light. It directly broke away from the ancient sea. It flew into the hands of the southern Long Marquis. In this way, the skeleton was naturally exposed, still bare. A small, black leather belt was wrapped around the skeletal waist. Indeed, there was a storage bag. The old man with the surname Lu's face lit up with joy. The male old Marquis also excitedly tossed the light object in his hand, aside onto the ground. He stared at the black storage bag, not blinking at all. The originally indifferent Han Li slightly changed his expression upon hearing the sound of the light object hitting the ground, but quickly returned to normal. If the 2 fellow Taoists are at ease, then this monkey will go over to take a look at the treasures in the bag. I wonder what you think. In the tense and indifferent atmosphere, the male long monkey smiled at Han Li and the old man, and suddenly suggested, of course, let Southern Long Brother go take a look. Han Li smiled slightly at the belt and replied. The old man Lu slightly pondered, and nodded in agreement. Thus, the male long monkey took a few steps forward, carefully picked up the storage bag, and used a divine stone to roughly scan inside. He swept the divine stone inside with a rough glance, expressionless on the face. What exactly is inside Nanlong's brother? Why not pour it all out for us to see? Seeing this situation, Lu Wang couldn't help but say. Upon hearing this, Nangong nodded slightly. Then, with a single hand, he flipped open the mouth of his storage bag. Immediately, the bag was turned upside down, and a white mist swept out. Soon, a large pile of items revealed themselves on the ground. What the hell is this? Once he saw the items in front of him, the old man couldn't help but be taken aback. Most of the items in front of him were chunks of bright red iron, each one hot enough to burn. They seemed rather unusual. Besides these, there were also a few other eye-catching items. One was a fluffy white healing item. One was a small purple path. There was also a small yellow piece, a set of dark green flying needles, and 2 black medicine bottles. Upon seeing these items, Han Li squinted his eyes, his expression shifting. Aside from the healing item and the medicine bottles, the rest all looked like unusual ancient treasures. As for the items in the healing potion bottle, naturally, it piqued Han Li's interest even more, because just now, with the sweep of the divine stone. It was unclear whether the healing and the potion bottle had been refined using nuclear materials. His divine stone could not forcibly penetrate it. It was unclear, having never seen such material before, but it seemed like a semi-finished product that had undergone secondary refining. Han Li frowned slightly, looking somewhat uncertain. Saying it was a semi-finished product wasn't wrong, if he guessed correctly. These iron blocks should be the rumored spiritual materials, special materials used by ancient cultivators to refine ancient castles. It is said that the refining method is somewhat unique. Most would use some rare materials, combining the power of heaven and earth to form the spiritual materials. These should be what this ancient cultivator wanted to use to refine a powerful living attribute ancient castle. It was indeed unexpected to have so many at once. It was difficult for Han Li to think for a moment. If it really was everywhere, these iron blocks were the origin of the spiritual materials. Upon hearing this name, Han Li immediately recalled that this name was mentioned in that classical collection. After a brief thought, he obtained the same information as the southern monkey. Indeed, it was a rare material for refining ancient castles. It seemed that the ancient castles refined with this material. Their power is by no means trivial. After hearing this explanation, the old man Lu Zun showed a look of disinterest on his face. After his gaze swept over the other treasures, it landed on the Ute medicine bottle. At this moment, the male Longho raised a hand and actually tossed the storage bag in his hand over. Han Li was momentarily stunned after catching it, but he immediately understood the other party's intention, so he weighed it in his hand without ceremony. After quickly scanning the contents of the bag with his divine sense, he tossed the bag to the old man Lu Zun. After the old man inspected it, he nodded to indicate there was no problem. Then he threw the bag onto the ground. How should we divide these treasures? Should we just each take double quotes items? Lu Weiyin's lips twitched as she finally asked the question she was most concerned about, her face showing a hint of seriousness. Does Brother Lu have another method of distribution? Han Li's eyes flickered as he said calmly, if that Ute medicine bottle were also an ancient treasure, the three of us could each take the treasures without any issue. But as it is, with the Ute medicine bottle, we still don't know what is inside it. Naturally, we must open it and take a look first. Then we can divide the treasures according to their value. South Mark was suddenly interjected. Uttering seemingly just words, the elder Lu Zun, upon hearing this, furrowed his brows slightly, but then nodded repeatedly. This is exactly what I mean. I wonder what Taoist Han thinks. I have no objections. Let's go with what the two Taoists have said. Han Li said this almost without consideration. With such straightforwardness from Taoist Han, then this Marquis will see what exactly is inside. Hearing Han Li's prompt response, Mao Long Marquis was also very satisfied. He immediately reached out. The white healing flew into his hand with a swoosh. Then he slapped the healing with the back of his hand, intending to open the box lid. But just as his palm touched the box lid, suddenly a flash of white light appeared. A layer of white mist emerged, instantly rebounding his palm. Oh, this box has been sealed. South Long Marquis pondered. But after a brief moment of contemplation, he again reached for the box lid with a glimmer of golden light in his hand. This time, white mist also surged out. Golden light and white mist intertwined for a moment, but after a short while, the rosy light clearly cannot compete with the shimmering golden palm. It was slowly grasped by the golden hand onto the lid. The lid was forcibly pried open. The white rosy light instantly dissipated without a trace. Han Ling's gaze focused. He immediately saw the object in the river. It was a slightly yellowed ancient jade slab. Under the differing gazes of the old man with the surname Lu, he found it hard to swallow. After hesitating for a moment, he still extended the fingers to gently pick up the jade slab. He pressed it against his forehead. In an instant, his divine stone swept over the contents of the jade slab. A look of surprise appeared on his face. Fellow Taoists, come and take a look. The old man, in order to avoid suspicion, quickly removed the jade slab. He then tossed it to Han Li. Han Li's expression changed as he received the jade slab. He also let his divine stone enter it. But after a moment, he inadvertently frowned. He returned the jade slab to the old man with the surname Lu. Lu Weiying also quickly glanced at the contents of the jade slab. Che Yanshan, what is this ancient castle? I've never heard of it before. Is this ancient castle very powerful? The old man had not finished looking when the corner of his mouth moved, making it hard to say. This is not very clear, however, for the refining method to be so solemnly recorded. Inside this jade slip, and with most of the ingredients being spirit materials, and the like, it must be quite powerful, right? Marquis Nangong said, not entirely certain. Even if it's powerful, it's useless. The spirit materials required to refine this treasure are simply too numerous. Although it details the method for consecrating the spirit materials, it alone requires the fusion and refining of 81 types of life attribute spirit materials. And there are so many auxiliary materials as well. Some of them seem to have long since vanished from this realm. This jade slip is basically useless these days. It can only be used for research and artifact refinement. The Lucerne-named elder shook his head. He then tossed the jade slip back to Marquis Nanlong. Marquis Nanlong chuckled. A look of nonchalance appeared on his face. He nonchalantly placed the jade slip back into the jade box. Master, the 7-flame fan. Does this jade slip really record the refining method for that treasure? Just as Han Li was also thinking this jade slip was useless, a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. A voice filled with faint, extreme surprise. Upon hearing this, Han Li's heart stirred. He immediately sent back a voice transmission. That's right. That is indeed its name. How do you know of this ancient treasure? Master, if I'm not mistaken, this 7-flame fan is also one of the profound spirit treasures. Although his ranking among the heavenly treasures seems extremely low, it looks like he is almost at the bottom. The sound of the music has a slight tremor. Unable to help herself, she repeatedly said heavenly treasure. Upon hearing this, Han Li was taken aback. She couldn't help but be stunned. What? This Che Yinshan is a heavenly treasure? Then this elder sister must obtain it. I have long wanted to study the heavenly treasure. Now there is actually a method to refine it. It couldn't be better. Han Li had not yet responded. The big-eyed deity, who had been silent recently, suddenly excitedly shouted in Han Li's mind. You old monster, butted in recklessly. What? Upon hearing the big-eyed deity's words, his voice turned cold. He said with irritation, "Ha, you little fox spirit, still holding a grudge over that day. I just have never seen a spirit with intelligence. That's why I suggested borrowing you for some research. Didn't your master agree?" The big-eyed deity laughed, acting as if he didn't care. Hello, music. This matter has long passed. No need to dwell on it anymore. The senior Taoist actually knows about the treasure of spiritual communication. This surprised the junior a bit. However, now is not the time for detailed discussions. Let's talk about everything later, Han Li said coldly. Then, his gaze shifted back to the healing on the ground. After that, he saw that the Marquis of Nanlong had already taken two black medicine bottles in his hands, and was opening the caps. In an instant, he lost his focus. Although the Great Eye God felt somewhat displeased, he was still constrained by Han Li, so he could only grumble a bit more. He also fell silent. The black medicine bottle released a fragrant aroma as soon as the cap was opened. Han Li took a whiff, and felt a wave of comfort throughout his body. His spirit was invigorated. This didn't seem like the most common types. It was an ancient elixir. He didn't know what kind of spiritual medicine it was, but it definitely wasn't a harmful poison. He must go back and investigate it carefully. Looking at the warm nakedness, the monkey poured out a jade green pill from the bottle. It was light in his hand. Hesitantly, he said there were several unfortunate pills in the bottle. Hesitantly, he mentioned that there were a few unfortunate pills in the bottle. The old man's eyes shifted. He stared at the pill and slowly said, "There is only one. It seems to be a rare type of ancient elixir." Lord Nanlong, in front of Han Li and the old man, shook the empty bottle a few more times. Without thinking, he said, "Let's take a look at the other bottle." Lu Wang's voice became somewhat urgent. The old man nodded in response. He poured the elixir back into the bottle. Then he opened another bottle, and poured out another identical green elixir. This time, both the Blue Dragon Monkey and Lu Zun exchanged glances with each other. It seems this time the harvest is quite good. There are 3 ancient castles, 2 unknown elixirs, and a method for refining ancient elixirs. How do you the fellow Taoists plan to divide it? Han Li smiled upon seeing this. He casually asked, "These 2 elixirs, although we don't know what kind they are, I believe fellow Taoist Han also knows that the main purpose of our partnership is to seek miraculous elixirs. As for these 2 elixirs, Lu Taoist and I plan to take 1 each. So, we can consider it as having divided a treasure. And fellow Taoist Han, you can first prioritize selecting 1 from the remaining ancient castles. Fellow Taoist, you have no objections, right?" Nanlong Marquis glanced at the 2 in his hand. He calmly said to Han Li while raising his hand. Upon hearing this, Han Li slightly frowned. He looked at the few ancient castles on the ground. The value of the woolen dand doesn't need me to mention. Both of you fellow Taoists are aware of it. To be honest, I would rather not have the ancient castle, and instead want to share in one of the benefits. Who knows, it might help me with my cultivation plans. Han Li stroked his chin, and shook his head lightly as he spoke. Upon hearing Han Li's words, Nanlong Marquis and Lu Wang's expressions changed drastically. They showed signs of tension. Nanlong's face was unpredictable. After a moment, he forcefully said, Taoist friend Han, you are still young. Why should you compete with us? Old fellows, for these 2 pills. With your short time, you have already advanced to the Yuanying stage. In the future, entering the supreme path would be as easy as flipping your hand. Being young and wanting to share the pills is simply 2 different matters. The opportunity is right in front of you. Naturally, I, Han, will also strive for it with all my might. I can give up all the other treasures. I only want these 2 spirit pills. To be honest, I am not lacking in ordinary ancient treasures. Han Li's expression was indifferent, as he spoke in a soft voice. Brother Han, you must be joking. How could the 2 of us possibly give up these spirit pills so easily? How about this? As long as Brother Han is willing to give up the spirit pills. As for the rest of the treasures, we can let Brother Han have priority in choosing 1 more item. Then we'll divide what's left equally. That should be acceptable, right? Marquis Nanlong. What do you say? Well then, the old man, seeing that Han Li seemed determined to get them, had spoken those words out of anxiety. Upon hearing this, Marquis Nanlong furrowed his brows tightly, but then he gave a wry smile. As long as you're willing to give up these spirit pills, we can let fellow Taoist Han pick 2 treasures first. As Marquis Nanlong said this, a look of reluctance flashed across his face. After all, during their previous trip to the Mulan Prairie, his ancient treasures had been almost all destroyed by the people from the Ghost Spirit sect during an attack, leaving practically nothing. So regarding these ancient treasures before him, which were almost in his grasp, naturally, there is great reluctance. However, if it's for the ancient spirit pills, the priorities are clear. He can distinguish between the 2 very well. At this moment, Han Li's expression shifted, revealing a hint of hesitation. It seems he is somewhat tempted by this suggestion. The old man with the surname Lu noticed this and, seizing the opportunity, urged him further. Fellow Taoist, there are still, though, many resources available to you. There will be plenty of time to search for the spirit pills later. In comparison, the ancient castle is more important for you now. After all, the battles you will face in the future will surely be numerous. Having an extra ancient castle now might just save your life later on. The old man, in his efforts to persuade Han Li to give up the spirit pills, was quite earnest. Han Li couldn't help but chuckle. It seems that if Han does not give up these spirit pills, it will indeed be difficult to allocate these treasures. Alright then, considering how sincere both Taoists are, I can agree to not take these 2 ancient spirit pills. There's no need to take away the 2 ancient castles either. Aside from this mirror, just give me the method for refining treasures that is currently healing, along with these materials. That will be sufficient. I am quite interested in Chet training. Han Li reached out and grabbed at the empty space on the ground. The purple mirror flew into his hand out of nowhere. He said calmly, no problem. Just as Wan Chong mentioned, the 2 from Nanlong Marquis were momentarily stunned. But after exchanging glances, they fell silent. Although they were puzzled by Han Li not taking the ancient castle and wanting these items instead, they were too lazy to ponder over it now for the sake of the ancient spirit pill. Upon hearing the 2's response, Han Li nodded as usual. A flash of light appeared in his hand, and the purple ancient mirror vanished without a trace. Then, he lightly waved his hand towards the materials and healing items on the ground. After a moment of azure mist, that large pile of materials and healing items simultaneously disappeared without a trace. Seeing Han Li's actions, the monkey and the old man also unceremoniously took a potion bottle, carefully storing it in their own storage bags. Then the 3 of them naturally turned their attention to the remaining 2 ancient castles. Now, these 2 treasures were indeed a bit difficult to divide among the 3 of them. Just as the 2 from Nanlong Marquis hesitated, it was indeed a bit difficult to divide among the 3 of them. Just as the 2 from the Southern Marquis hesitated, Han Li blinked her eyes. Suddenly, she burst into laughter. How about this? I don't lack any ancient castles either. You fellow cultivators have brought enough snacks. You can take these 2 ancient castles. Just pay me with equivalent snacks. Han Li said slowly. Han Dao is so humble. Then we shall respectfully comply. I happen to bring a lot with me. The old man with the surname Lu showed joy upon hearing this. He immediately agreed. After all, ancient castles are something that are valuable yet hard to find in the southern immortal cultivation realm. The southern dipper monkey itself is also lacking. Naturally, the ancient castle smiled and agreed to Han Li's suggestion. So, when these 2 managed to scrape together enough snacks, they finally handed them over to Han Li. This way, both parties were quite pleased. Before seeing the 2 from the southern Long Marquis put away the remaining 2 ancient castles, It seemed as if they casually waved their hands, pulling the green silkworm robe that had been discarded by the southern Long Marquis into their hands. Then, they swaggered and stored it away. He tossed aside the green silkworm robe and caught it in his hand. Then, he swaggered and put it away. Although the two from Nan Long Marquis saw this, they still had lingering effects. However, Han Li decided to give the two ancient cloaks to them. They didn't feel it was appropriate to say much about such a trivial matter. Although this robe is rare, its actual usefulness is not very significant. They allowed Han Li to pick up the